In today's podcast, I have Renee Pavvuda, a dynamic author and book marketer, known for her expertise in helping authors build powerful personal brands and market their books. Through her Substack, Smoking Hot Book Funnel, Renee shares actionable insights on crafting effective book funnels, leveraging digital platforms, and creating standout author identities that captivate audiences. Her innovative approach to book marketing empowers authors to reach their ideal readers, boost book sales, and establish lasting visibility in a crowded marketplace. So, welcome, Renee.
Thanks, Nira. I appreciate setting up this time for our interview today.
You have a very interesting story to lead up to where you are now. Why don't we start from there? Tell us how you got started and where are you now and how you got there.
Sure. Thank you, Nira. The story starts when I was 24 years old. I was coming back from Asheville, North Carolina with my sister. We were meeting my parents at Food Terminal. If you're from Atlanta, you probably know that place. It's this Malaysian place. We're meeting my parents, and over dinner, my dad hands me this envelope. It's thick. I open it, and it says purple book. And I'm like, what is this, Dad? I don't know if you're a dad, when you ask questions about certain things, I've heard this is a common thing, but dads like to answer questions in books. And you're like, why didn't you just answer this question for me, Dad? Why did they give you a whole book? But it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh,
Yeah, for a lot of entrepreneurs, they start off their entrepreneurship journey suspecting certain things about work, money, and finance. I tore through that book in literally 2 days because not too early before that, I had been in internships at work. I was in an engineering program and I was in engineering jobs. My mentors at my internship were saying, don't worry, you'll just work here for another 40 years and you might as well just like what you do. I remember thinking, first of all, I don't really even know what this is and much less love it. And I can't imagine spending 40 years doing this soul sucking thing because I suspected that there's something weird going on here. Why are there people so unhappy with their lives and they're not
mhm,
living from their purpose and their passion? When you're a kid, you're smiling, you're happy, there's this glow that comes out of you. Why is it when people grow up, their glow just disintegrates? When I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, this is the portal. This
mhm,
is the way that you can live your life in a more passion driven way. You can spend your time doing things that you love because you're financially supported, you're financially free. I remember on my first day at my first engineering job, I was starting to Google how to make money online.
okay. You started early.
So I started early. When I was doing it, I wasn't thinking. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do this in between during my lunch break. But looking back, I was already on the mission. I was like, engineering is not, I was passionate about at the time. This is a good thing, but lifespan, my entire life, I can't be spending my whole life here. So that brought me to an audiobook course.
Mhm.
And that audiobook course was, I remember like spending like that, it was like $2,000. It was like a huge chunk of money for me at the time. Half of that was like from my uncle's graduation money, giving that to me. And so I spent $2,000 on that audiobook course. And that was like my first foray
Mhm.
into learning how to publish books on Amazon and Audible, the audiobook version of Amazon KDP.
Mhm.
That was when I first learned how to press all the buttons. Everyone's like, when they're first doing it, they're like, which button do I press? And what leads to this? So I quickly figured out, oh, okay, so this leads to this. When I press this button, it goes live on Amazon. And I also learned that when I'm not publishing a book in a big enough market, there aren't enough buyers. When I don't launch my book, people don't know about it, and so they don't buy it. When I
Mhm.
don't have enough reviews for my book, if I don't have at least 75 reviews, people don't want to buy it. They don't want to be interested. They're not interested in it. There was this learning curve about how you realize that after about like 75 reviews is like that tipping point between
Mhm.
when you just have a book on Amazon versus when you actually have a book, like a book that's actually growing your business. That was a really good learning point, but I hated that course. It was a terrible course. I don't know anyone who's might be listening to this or near yourself who might be like, you start in a course and you're thinking this is going to change your life, but the course that you needed.
Almost every course is like that. Come to
Yes.
conclusion, unless you do your thing yourself and learn your own mistake, you don't learn anything from the courses. You just get a bit of confidence. Okay, this is how it's done.
And you also have to be in a good community because a lot of the courses out there, people just get lazy and slap up some information. But if you are actually, because I was wanting at the time, I was like, if I want to be financially free, I'm in my 20s, I want to be a digital nomad, traveling around the world. I wanted that lifestyle of working on my laptop on the beach in Thailand. I was desperately craving that.
Mhm.
If you want to change your whole life, go from 9 to 5 to have the financial means to fly to Thailand and support yourself, that's a whole lifestyle change. You need to be around people who are also changing their lives, who are supportive and going through the trenches with you. Like in every and this is marketing 101, is that you sell the outcome, but they don't tell you all the trenches that are needed necessarily to
Mhm.
transform your life. Like there's a river of misery that's involved.
Mhm.
So it is really important to be in a program that helps you be in a community. And so that program for me was Audiobook Impact Academy. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of people have been in that program. They don't necessarily like it, but I can tell from experience that program changed my life.
Mhm.
That was the program where I finally learned how to launch books, how to get 100 reviews in 30 days, how to find a market that was large enough to actually sell enough books. These were
Mhm.
essential skills that were missing and
Mhm.
that finally figured out in Audiobook Impact Academy. I found a booked market. At the time, I was also interested in saving a lot of money and I was going to save money and buy plane tickets. I was really interested in saving money.
Mm.
And so that interest in saving money was like, I was interested in energy conservation. I was also interested in rainwater harvesting. The topic I chose to publish my book in AIA, which was the Audiobook Income Academy, was
Mhm.
about rainwater harvesting. They teach you in that course how to spend the time doing market research properly, how
Mhm.
to create a book that isn't just a book on, like I'm saying, it can't just be a book on Amazon. It has to be a really good book, the book that people are craving. People have
Mm.
free YouTube, people have free Instagram, people have
Mm.
so many
Mm.
free resources out there. Why would they spend $20 on a book on Amazon from a complete stranger? So they teach you how to create the book, the thing that's out there that everyone's craving,
Mhm.
and how to package it in a way that solves their problem.
Mhm.
It took me 8 months to do that. And through that process, learned how to create the number one
Mm.
best-selling book on Amazon for rainwater harvesting. And I got 100 reviews in 10 days, sold 10,283 copies in a single year, which is apparently in the top 1% of book sales. The outcome of that was all of a sudden people were like, hey, you wrote a book on rainwater harvesting? Come on my podcast, speak at my gig. I want to buy books for my store. I come to Hawaii. All
Mhm.
this beautiful overtones were happening because I launched the number one book on this topic. And
Mhm.
weirdly enough, I was not at all an influencer of rainwater harvesting. I had never harvested a drop of rainwater in my life. So there was this really weird period of what do I do? How do I go on this podcast? What do I speaking gig? It took some time to realize, oh my gosh, I learned how to market books and I can help
By
other people
doing it
market
yourself.
books by doing it myself. Yes. And
Yeah.
going through the trenches. Yes. So that's how I help other people do it.
Yeah. Okay. So you also did a course with the chicken soup writers. Tell us about that one.
The chicken, you're mentioning Chicken Soup for the Soul, correct? Yes. Yeah. That was a really interesting story. In 2023, I got a Facebook ad that was Steve Harrison, who was one of the early marketers of Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mhm.
He was hosting a mastermind with Jack Canfield, who was one of the original creators of the Chicken Soup for the
Of
Soul
the
brand. And so I was like, what is this? Maybe this could help me. What was really awesome about that package was that it was also in a mastermind session with a lot of people don't know her name, but her name is Patty Aubrey. Patty Aubrey was the president of the Chicken Soup for the Soul companies before they sold it. She was one of the marketing masterminds behind how many books did they have? 50 or more books, Chicken Soup
Mhm.
for the Soul books.
Mhm.
And that turned that book into $1 billion book brand. And so that was a
Mhm.
really exciting mastermind
Mhm.
and learned how to sell books in bulk, how
Mhm.
to contact corporate executives to potentially
Mhm.
get my book sold in Home Depot and Tractor Supply Company, how to build relationships. And a really great thing was that Jack Canfield said, wow, this is one of the best research book I've ever seen in my career. And that was like, wow, oh my gosh, Jack Canfield
Mhm.
said this. That was a huge learning and something I
Mhm.
like to cite for other people. If Jack Canfield says it, then here you go.
Okay. So you spend about $11,000 on that course.
It was $12,000. Yeah.
Did you get value for the money?
I think I got value for the money. I think the real value of that is that I was connected with 4 other entrepreneur ladies who
Mhm,
we now meet in a mastermind. We meet monthly, but every day, every week, we are talking to each other, sharing concepts.
mhm,
Before that, I didn't really have a high level network of entrepreneur ladies.
mhm,
One of the women in there, she was connected with one of the VPs from Tractor Supply Company.
mhm,
Those connections are completely invaluable. You can't really put a
mhm,
price tag on them. If someone says, "Where does the money come from?" How do you get connected with a VP from a Fortune 500 company? You need
mhm,
relationships. The learning, the relationships, and
mhm,
the person that you also become when you spend that money
mhm.
is you become a different person. And that embodiment was also worth it.
Writing a book is not enough. Publishing a
Yeah.
book is not enough. You need to build those connections. You need to learn how to launch. And that's what
Yes.
I would want to explore more in this chat. There's one thing I read on your Substack where you said, at one stage in your life, you made a decision. If I want to play big, I need to stop playing small. What did you mean by that? And how did this decision go for you?
Yeah. So that's a really interesting question, Nira. And this goes back to years of growing up in a home where money was a very loaded word. For many of us, it is very loaded. You always hear talk around the home as, we don't have it. We don't have money. You think money grows on trees? You can't buy that, Renee. You're told no a lot. Why? Because there's not enough money. The word money is a scary word, and it's a touchy subject, and if you bring it up,
Mhm,
there are consequences to the domestic peace in your home, right? And so, ever since I joined AIA and started realizing that in order to build a six-figure book brand, I
mhm,
needed to become a different person. I needed to
mhm,
think like a six-figure entrepreneur. I needed to think in terms of how does a six-figure entrepreneur think and I need to invest in myself and invest in my business like a six-figure entrepreneur.
mhm,
But in order to do that, I had to unpack so many years of conditioning about the word money and about what it would look like instead of constantly scrimping, constantly saving it, constantly. And this goes back to also to I was telling you about why I published a book on rainwater harvesting. I was saving a ton of money. I was interested in like saving and energy bills and like how can I save water? The only way my limited mind at the time knew how to increase my value was
mhm,
by saving the money that was coming in rather than if I
mhm,
spend this money, I can use it as a slingshot, pull back and
mhm,
launch myself even further with
mhm,
more velocity than I could have if I was just saving, right? But that took coaching programs, getting out of my comfort zone. Yeah, it was always like, scrimp, and that's what you're saying, playing small. I'm just going to save 60% of my paycheck and that's enough. Whereas playing big is, oh my gosh, this Jack Canfield mastermind costs $12,000. Most people would say, "That's a terrible idea. That's not worth it." But I knew that to paying $12,000, I needed to spend that check more than Jack Canfield needed that check, right?
mhm,
I needed to be in that mindset of breaking my own walls and
mhm,
paying out that money. What could
mhm,
it feel like? What is my body's reaction? Am I afraid? Am I constantly wondering where I'm going to get that ROI back? Is that
mhm.
a mindset of scarcity or is that a mindset of abundance? It's a mindset of scarcity. And when you become a six-figure entrepreneur or seven-figure entrepreneur, you got to think like an abundance. You got to be thinking, how can I create a slingshot effect and not just constantly be living in scarcity? So that's where that came from.
And did it work for you?
Absolutely.
Mhm,
100%.
mhm,
100%. I think there's this limited mindset potentially for someone who is wondering about the ROI of things. They're like, okay, so if I buy this salad for $12, then in 5 weeks, I can lose a certain amount of weight and I can go to the beach and I feel great. I want to encourage you to think longer than 5 weeks. I want you to think in terms of years and decades. That's the mindset now that I encourage myself and encourage everyone that I'm around to be thinking in terms of. Because that 12K, that $12,000 I spent on the Jack Canfield Mastermind did not come back to me in 5 weeks, 5 days, or 5 months.
Mhm.
It's still technically manifesting. The ROI is still coming out because I'm currently still in a Marco Polo room with those 4 women that I met in that Jack Canfield Mastermind. I'm
Mhm.
still connected with Jack Canfield. I have his personal email address. I email him annually, say, hey, this is what's going on with my life, and this is what I'm so grateful to you for. Even now, I'm so grateful that I had that because I learned in that mastermind that he spent every day for years podcasting, and that's how he originally built his brand. Now, I have learned about podcasting and helping other people create their own podcast tours to grow their book. That's the value that I get to provide to other people. The ROI is incalculable, but to answer your question, it was totally worth it.
Are you full time into publishing, or is it still your side hustle?
My main business is coaching other entrepreneurs on how to have their own massive book launches.
Mm.
The book sales are nice, and I'm having another book launch coming up this spring.
Mm.
That was a really interesting learning curve. There's a huge back end opportunity that you can have. And that's now what I coach other people on. Book sales are great, but it's not enough for a full-time income. Even if you're selling in the top 1%, just some perspective for you.
So your Substack is called Smoking Hot Book Funnels. Can you explain what is a book funnel and why authors need one?
There's a loaded term, funnel, but I want to
Yeah.
use that term to describe this terminology. And for a lot of people, when they first encounter a brand online,
Mm-hmm.
they might be encountered it through a Substack or an Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And there are links on that Substack blog or on Instagram that take you to a website. That website says join this email list. On that email list, you get nurtured to then join a wait list to join a group coaching program, for example. And
Mm-hmm.
that's in general a funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And what is really, there are different kinds of funnels. What's really powerful about a book funnel is the book itself.
Mm.
There are very special characteristics about a book and about authorship in general. Anyone can sell anything online because through online education, anyone can be an expert these days. Expertise is so crowded that there's this new, I would say, problem in 2024, 2025, and beyond that it's almost the new problem is to differentiate yourself from all the other experts.
Yeah.
Everyone has an Instagram, everyone has a webinar, everyone has a podcast. How do you
Everyone is giving
differentiate?
advice.
Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a group coaching course. How do you say, I know what I'm talking about? Why is this person who doesn't know what they're talking about making more of an impact and making more money than I am? It's because they potentially have more authority than you do.
Mm.
Now, books, there's something about authorship. The word author and authority have the same root word. There is this quote I like to quote from this author named Dave Chilton. He sold 2 million books in Canada, who said that what's authorship more than just a profession like a plumber or a software engineer, but this authors have this special place in our society where they are esteemed to the highest profession. They have so much knowledge in our profession. They're revered. And you can leverage that. I wrote a book on rainwater harvesting without having ever collected a drop of rainwater in my life. But because I had positioned myself
Mm.
as a rainwater harvesting author,
Mm.
the opportunities came to me
Mm.
instead of me having to chase them. I didn't even know what these people were, and they were flooding to me. So if you are an online entrepreneur or any kind of entrepreneur and you have a funnel and you have a podcast or email list or an Instagram and you don't have a book yet, have you considered having a book that is so reverent to your readers, to your audience, to reaching new people that they read you, they take you on vacation with them? Sarah Blakely just went on vacation and she brought like 5 books with her. She's probably not on Instagram and she's probably not listening to podcasts while she's on vacation. She's reading books.
Yep. Same.
There's something you treasure, something you cherish. Why not be the person in Sarah Blakely's suitcase with her, right? And another wonderful thing about book launches is that you can accelerate your brand launch or brand growth
Mm-hmm.
because one of my clients recently, she 2x'd her Instagram and her email list in 30 days with her launch. She went from 1,000 to 2,000 followers. Normally, it takes one Instagram follower at a time. But the book launch can explode that at one time. So that's another great thing about book
Mhm.
launches and book
Mhm.
funnels.
And they also become means to sell other is or premium offers you have. Is that what
Yeah.
you also look at?
This was a big aha moment for myself was that I was just selling books. I just wanted to master marketing books. But for a lot of authors who are like, oh, I just want to master marketing books and I just want to get to books, I just want to sell books.
Mhm.
You can still sell in the top 1% of books and still not make a full time income.
Mhm.
Why are you not, for even for fiction authors, why are you not selling access to how you created the book, how you created the characters, selling writing retreats, selling people sell retreats to go to Tuscany to write with them? There's a huge opportunity to
Mm.
continue helping, nurturing, and growing with the people who want to be close to you as an author already. And even for nonfiction is it seems to me now is more obvious, but for a
Mm.
lot of people it's not as obvious. So when you're selling a book, for example, for a rainwater harvesting book, I could have sold kits. I could have sold horses. I could have sold any of these things. People came to my Facebook Messenger and email saying, hey, now that I have finished this book, I am really confused as to how to order the parts and get it to my house. They still need implementation help. And how can you
Mm.
continue to help them by selling them more valuable offers? That's
There
a
you go.
question for you.
Keeping on the same topic, what are the key components of an effective book funnel, particularly for authors?
Sure. Yeah. I like to say that there are three main components to an effective book funnel.
Mhm.
One is your book. Sounds obvious,
Mm.
but your book, a really good book, a nonfiction business book that is going to bring new and fresh eyeballs into your business and customers into your business
Mhm.
is going to indoctrinate someone into your method and
Mhm.
also draw the reader closer to you as the author. For
Mm.
example, one really good example I like to cite is the book B, which
Mm.
was written by an author called Jessica Zweig, and she was running a seven-figure personal branding agency at the time.
Mhm.
And she had a whole personal branding methodology that she worked her private clients through. She had a social media strategy and all this good stuff. With her book, she broke that method down into about 15 to 20 chapters, digestible chunks that someone who knows nothing about personal branding
Mm.
could digest one chapter at a time. By the time they've started to end it, they build their own personal brand. You've taken your entire method, broken it into chunks, and you open each chapter with a vulnerable story about how you created that piece of the method so
Mhm.
that people are growing closer to you, you're feeling authentic, and simultaneously selling and indoctrinating people into your method, into your world. That's not easy. Some people think, oh, I can just slap up a book on Amazon and people will fall in love with me if I just write, if I was word vomit onto a Word
Mm.
doc.
Mm.
I'm encouraging you to be more strategic with your book, to think about how someone who knows nothing about you can become indoctrinated into your world and
Mhm.
become closer to you as the entrepreneur. There's the book. There's the book launch. The book launch is a specific strategic runway between when you finish your book and when that book is available to the masses, and it can be after that as well. But there's a runway where you're saying, I want to bring new and fresh eyeballs onto my book. I encourage everyone that podcast guesting is a very important component of a nonfiction book launch because the audiences of podcasts and books are very similar. 68% of podcast listeners have purchased a book after they heard about it on a show. So it's
Yeah.
really powerful. So podcast guesting is huge. And then setting up your book for a strong Amazon launch includes what I call the 5 components of optimizing your Amazon listing. So making sure your book cover is really strong and people are responding to it. They
Mhm.
want to buy your book. Your book title and your subtitle are really strong. People are responding to it. You have tested these things. Having 100 reviews. I think that less than 100 reviews for a nonfiction thought leadership book is not enough. You are competing against so many other people, and you want to be an authority, right? Don't you want
Mm.
to be an authority in the market? You need to prove that on Amazon. Amazon is like a public platform, just like LinkedIn or Instagram. It's your public profile of authority on the
Mhm.
internet. If you
Mhm.
don't have enough reviews, people are going to question whether or not you know what you're talking about, whether you like it or not. Reviews, sending out enough copies to your audience, to potentially new people, so that they can leave you a review in time. And your book description, maximizing all 4,000 characters that Amazon allows you for a really good sales page for your book. And then finally, supplemental content, which is like graphics and blurbs from your famous friends. Even Mike Michalowicz has a blurb from his mom. You can play around with it, but you're maximizing every single inch of that public profile, your public profile of authority on the internet. Yeah. And then finally, the third thing is your book. So your book funnel pages. So when someone reads your book and they say, oh, like I really love this chapter where they teach you, Nira, how you teach them how to write a book, and they flip through and they're saying, oh, there's a QR code where I can scan this and I can get extra bonuses from Nira and join her email list. Great. How you're going to set those up. Also having landing pages for your podcast tour so that when you say, hey, buy my book and also get these awesome bonuses, just go to this link in the show notes. They go to that link, they download the book, they enter the receipt number, and they get all these amazing bonuses that they couldn't get otherwise. So 3 components: book launch and book funnel pages.
Excellent. That is about the book launches and funnel.
Mm-hmm.
But let's clarify something which is not very clear to many authors. What is an author brand?
Yeah. I want to give an example.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good example because I brought one of my private clients through this. When you are presenting on the internet as a thought leader, as an influencer, as someone you want to be known for a certain topic, you want to be an expert, you want to be authority in a certain topic, there's a way that you have to go about it to show it on the internet. Some people make the mistake of saying, here's my dog, and my dog also wants to write a book. They just make up random content on the internet, and it looks very scattered. People don't know who you're about, what you're saying. Here's my trip to Morocco that I took last week, and here I love these cheetah pants, and also I did organizational consulting. People are like, what are you talking about? Who are you? What do you do? Author branding and personal branding in general is the art of distilling what you want to be known for in the marketplace into a set of key pillars. And it could be 3 or 4 key pillars. And at the end of the day, you know that you love cheetah pants, but the internet and the world at large doesn't necessarily need to know your opinion on cheetah pants because it confuses and muddles your brand. It muddles their perception of you. If you want to be known as the go-to career alignment activator on the internet, and then saying maybe you want to bring back cheetah pants to your expertise in career alignment, then absolutely. But a lot of people are just really confused as to who they are and what they're talking about, especially when it comes to finally talking about their book on a podcast. Some of the work that we do with my private clients is, what is the story that you had to get to this point in your life to write a book about this? That includes saying certain things and leaving certain things out. You don't need to talk about every car that you drove and every retreat that you went to get to a point where you wrote this book. You just want to take the shortcut to get to that point. Author branding helps you, is an exercise to distill who you are into 3 to 4 key pillars to say, this is who I'm about. This is why I care, why people should know me about this. Presenting that on the internet consistently so that you become the go-to person in the thing that you want to be the go-to person in.
So basically, author brand is what do you stand for?
Yes.
And how you can help others do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
So that probably applies very well to the nonfiction authors.
Yes.
Do you have a take for fiction authors? So let's take example of J.K. Rowling. J.K. stands for magic. He writes about magic for young teenagers. Is that what her brand is?
Yeah, that's a good example, Nira. I want to use that example because for her entire career, when she wrote the Harry Potter series, she was known for magic. She was known for writing about things that are happening in the UK. So that British English undertone was a huge thing for her, for young adults. Absolutely. Now, when she finished Harry Potter, she felt so relieved that she could write about anything that she went off the rails. She wrote adult fiction, and it was nothing at all related to Harry Potter or what she'd been writing about before. And that's what she wanted. But the public reaction to that was, what is she doing? That confusion is what I want to pinpoint. Because she had spent so much time staying in her lane of magic, young adult,
She went
and then
off brand.
you went off her brand. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you can go off your brand when it's time to go off your brand. But if you want to be known for something, and she was very disciplined about it for how many years? Almost 10 years. She was doing one thing and she got to reap the rewards of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that you can do as well. But if to go off brand, you will confuse your audience. Just be prepared to manage your audience's confusion. And people say that she's done it in different ways, better or for worse. But yeah, just be prepared to manage that.
Yeah. So she is the top paying author of all times.
Correct. Yes.
And even she can't do that. She can
She
go off brand.
she did it for a while. I will say that she did it masterfully for a long time.
When she tried to go off brand, it didn't work for her. She's writing now under a pen name, and her books are not selling that well. But the point I'm trying to make over here is branding is so important, and
Yeah.
it's so powerful that you can't
Mhm.
even get off your brand even when you want to, and even if you are J.K. Rowling. We all need to look at our branding and work on it very carefully.
Correct. You'll be branded whether you like it or not. So why
Yeah.
not manage and control the public perception of your brand? Yeah.
Okay, so how do you approach creating a standout author identity, especially for new authors who may not yet know what their brand is?
For fiction, it can be a whole other ball game. And maybe I think it does apply in some ways to fiction. J.K. Rowling, she used a lot of her personal experiences in her fiction writing. In many ways, her brand had a lot to do with starting from nothing and being on welfare. A lot of her characters start from very little and eventually get to a successful point. So, yeah, definitely you can still do it for fiction. For nonfiction, the process usually involves asking a series of very important pointed questions about you. And it has a lot to do with your values. What do you value? What are your values in this world? When you hear something that questions and threatens your values on the internet and about what you value, how do you respond? Are you angry? Maybe that pinpoints what you value in this world. For some of the authors I've worked with, for example, I'm working with one of my clients, Hen, who is writing an alcohol addiction book. And the thing with alcohol addiction is that there's two different camps. One is like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, that I surrender to the outcome. I'm not in control.
Mm.
And Ken's values are you are in control. You can't ever say that I'm a not in control. When you do that, you have lost your sobriety journey. So that's his very important, it's a very important part of his author brand that you're always in control. It's part of your values. The other thing is, what do you bring to the table that is a unique insight into your particular topic that isn't necessarily talked about very much in the marketplace? And what do you also bring to the table in terms of maybe audience or what assets you have in your business? So maybe you have a book already, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a specific method that you have developed in your business. Maybe you have a specific brand voice that you bring to the table that a lot of people love to gobble up. For example, Alex Ramosi has a very specific brand voice, and he's not at all like another big entrepreneur like Ollie Richardson. So Ollie Richardson, he's a seven-figure entrepreneur. He created Story Learning. He's more of a soft-spoken entrepreneur, but he's also got a personal brand. He's very wealthy. And Alex Ramosi is in your face, big yellow captions, getting your attention, big muscles, the nose strip, things like that. It's a totally different thing. Some people see Ollie Richardson's laid back vibe, smaller tone as his value. You could say that is my value. That is what I bring to the table is my personal brand is also one of your values or your value. There's that. Also your leverage. So how big is your audience? How big could it be? What's the size of your network? Who can you tap into? Things like that. Also, the story you have, your own personal story about how you got here. I like to tell people that you want to tell your story in a very specific way to
Mhm.
show how you've transformed. So, for example, in general, you are cruising along in life and you've got a specific way of doing things. You're like, yeah, whatever. I'm 100 pounds overweight, but I don't care until you hit that point where something bad happens. I realize I have a cancer scare, or I'm getting married and my husband just told me that I look terrible. And something bad is really wrecking your life.
Mm.
Um, and you go into this low point. You want to tell your story in this way. You hit your low point, and when you're in that low point, this is when your awareness has been blasted open. You realize you had a cancer scare and you have been unhealthy for way too long. Or from my own personal story, you realize you want to be financially free and that you're on a path to 9 to 5 and never being financially free. So your awareness blasted open. And then you go up this personal journey where you took it alone. No one else could have done it for you. And you realize new insights about yourself. Maybe you follow this person on Instagram and they're telling you how to lose weight, but that's not working for you. Or you're following this other person on LinkedIn, they're telling you how to get sober and that's not working for you. So you had to incorporate new methods into your lifestyle that work for you that no one else has done before. This is unique to you. You go up this journey and now you're above the point emotionally of where you were cruising along. And now you are transformed. You're like, hey, I know how to lose the weight, keep it off. I know how to stay sober. I know how to make the money that I've always wanted to make. And then you get to a point where you're so competent at that you're now ready to share that with other people. So
Mm.
that's the story. You can start. What are those components of your story? Those go into that personal author brand that you can now say, because I have now reached this point, I wrote a book about it. And now I'm ready to share this with other people and help other people with my book like that.
Aha. That's quite something. What would you advise to new writers approach writing a book, then publishing it, and having a launch plan?
I would say don't just write the book and then slap it up onto Amazon. When you do that, your book falls down the Amazon rankings and goes to this place called the Amazon graveyard. And it's really hard to find your book organically. If someone searches alcohol addiction books and your book is in the Amazon graveyard, your book isn't going to come up organically. If you can take the time to create a launch plan,
Mm.
execute on that plan, and maximize the Amazon algorithm to your advantage,
Mhm.
you are going to enjoy long-term organic ranking on Amazon for your book. That means
Mhm.
organic sales, easier marketing. You have made it easier for people to find your book and buy your book. If you can launch properly, then you are going to enjoy a flywheel of
Mhm.
reviews, which leads to flywheels of sales, which leads
Mhm.
to flywheel of more leads coming, highly qualified leads coming to your business. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So, what are the people who have written different books in multiple genres? How do they go about it?
It's really hard to create marketing momentum for people who have books in different genres.
Mhm.
Because what usually happens when you finish a book in one genre, you're like, okay, so what's the next book? What's the sequel in this genre? You're not
Mhm.
usually thinking, okay, I read a book about planting carrots in my garden. Now I want to, what's the next book I'm going to have to search for another author about how to find my soulmate in the next 30 days, right? You want to create momentum for your own reader. So you create an author brand. You say, I want to be known for being the expert of planting carrots in my garden. And
Mhm.
so you want to create as many books in the same genre as possible. So that makes your life easier. You create a flywheel for your reader and for your customer. I'm not saying you can't publish in multiple genres, but be prepared to do twice
Mhm.
as much, 3 times as much work, especially up front. Up front is the most difficult work to get your book brand off the ground with each genre that you publish in.
Mhm. Mhm. We're reaching towards the end of the interview. So, I have two questions I asked everybody. The first one is, what is one piece of advice would you give to authors who are ready to launch their books?
Who are ready to launch their books. I would
Mhm.
say, and maybe this is just being biased because I worked with coaches
Mhm.
since the beginning of my book marketing journey. Do not go about it alone. Don't just say, or I'm going to wing it. Have someone create a book marketing strategy for you. Have someone help you coach you through the book
Mhm.
marketing process. There's a lot of steps involved, especially if this
Mhm.
is your first time launching a book, then they have to happen in a specific sequence. And
Mhm.
if you get them wrong the first time, you can't go back. It took me 4 tries to get this right. I've launched 4 books that are flops before I finally launched the book that did well because I made so many mistakes that I
Mhm.
finally figured it out. If you
Mhm.
have one book in your business that
Mhm.
you are putting all your resources behind to get to the next level in your business
Mhm.
and you don't have anyone else, I would highly recommend getting a coach, a strategist, if not both, to help you strategize and execute that book launch that you know and you believe is going to launch you the next phase of your business.
Great advice. Where can people find you and what services do you offer?
Yes. If you are an author, especially a nonfiction and business author, and you are tired of the people that come to me the most often are people who are tired of putting books on Amazon and they're like, nothing happened. They're disappointed with the results. If you are
Mhm.
tired of your failed results, I highly encourage you to book a that is going to be in the show notes because what's going to happen is that you are going to have a disappointed launch. You're going to put your book on Amazon and it's not going to get you anywhere. You've already spent so much money and time and energy getting your book perfected. Why
Mhm.
not also have a strategic book launch that's going to maximize the Amazon algorithm for your launch? I help entrepreneurs who are looking to get to the next level of their business. I help them strategize and execute their book launch so that it's effective. There's a link to the show notes where you can book a no pressure call. You will get 3 strategies that you can walk away from immediately, and
Mhm.
you will know exactly what to do to execute your book launch. No pressure, no sales. You
Mhm.
can walk away. So the link is in the show notes. Yes.
Okay, so basically you are on Substack
Yeah.
and any other platform?
On LinkedIn and Instagram as well.
LinkedIn and
And those
Instagram.
will be linked in the show notes as well.
Excellent. Renee, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your journey as well as your invaluable advice about
Thank you,
personal
Nira.
branding, book marketing, book launching.
Thank you so much, Nira, for your time and for this awesome interview and for being such a great interviewee. Thank you.